Just 2 weeks ago, phase one of the new Air Passenger Bill of Rights was rolled out by the Canadian Transportation Agency. The new guidelines include how long an airline can keep you stranded on a plane that's stuck on a tarmac. Well, this week, hundreds of passengers learned the hard way that the new rules and regulations don't protect them if they're on a Canadian airliner bound for Canada at a foreign airport.
Stuck on a plane for 6 hours. It was 40 plus degrees in there. There was no AC, very minimal food. They gave us maybe chips and some snacks to munch on.
This was the scene this week on board Air Transat Flight 9309 in Rome. It was supposed to depart for Toronto, but multiple mechanical issues stopped the flight from taking off. Passengers tell CityNews they were stuck on the tarmac for about 6 hours. At one point, the airline let some people stand temporarily on a staircase outside of the plane to try and get some fresh air.
They said when they went back in, it felt like a wall of heat and it was just so hot on that plane.
A statement from Air Transat in part states from the time the first passenger got into the airplane to the time they all deplaned, it is correct to say that about 6 hours went by. Passengers tell CityNews that communication from Air Transat staff was minimal.
They didn't tell us about Bill of Rights and stuff like that.
The new Air Passenger Bill of Rights states that after a 3-hour tarmac delay, airlines will be required to return to the gate so that passengers can disembark. However, to the surprise of passengers we spoke with, the new rule only pertains to Canadian airports. Canadian airlines at foreign airports don't have to comply. Air passenger rights advocate Gabor Lukács says it's a loophole that he's red flagged for the government.
We warned the government explicitly about this issue. We told the government that the language in the regulations was wrong and it left passengers vulnerable. They chose to ignore us. They listened to the airlines.
The Canadian Transportation Agency didn't directly answer our question today when we asked them why they didn't ensure that tarmac delay times extended to Canadian carriers at foreign airports. However, Transportation Minister Marc Garneau's chief of staff told CityNews over the phone today that it will be difficult to enforce Canadian regulations abroad. It's a point Lukács calls false.
These airlines come to Canada to do business with Canadians, and therefore the Canadian government has every right to regulate them and to ensure that they comply with what is basic standards.
The Transportation Agency's own website states that the regulations ensure that during tarmac delays, whether they occur in Canada or abroad, passengers are treated properly. But the rules for tarmac delays outside of the country are only for things like working washrooms, proper ventilation, heating, cooling, food, and drinks. There's no limit for how long you can be left on a tarmac at an airport abroad.
We told the government that this would happen, and a mere 2 weeks after the new regulations are in force, we already see how they fail to protect Canadians.
Previously, Canadian Airlines had a 90-minute tarmac delay rule on their tariffs. Many feel that the new 3-hour rule by the government is actually a step backwards. Now, Air Transat says that they're going to be offering compensation of €600 per passenger. That's about $880 Canadian. The Canadian Transportation Agency also tells us that they're looking into the allegations of no air conditioning, of a lack of food and water. Air Transat could be fined up to $25,000 per passenger.